The country's tourism sector is slowly recovering from COVID-19 restrictions, and it now has to deal with regular blackouts. But it's not all doom and gloom for the sector as the country's economy slowly gets back to pre-pandemic levels. The national budget speech provided some positive signs that South Africa's economy could be turned around, including through incentives to stimulate short-term investment. The meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions industry stands to benefit from such provisions, which align with promoting tourism and local events. But what are the current challenges facing the tourism sector, and how can government assist, if at all? For more on this, we're joined by the founder and managing director of Exposure Marketing, Projeni Pather. Projeni, thank you very much for talking to us this morning. And maybe let's paint the picture of the struggles of the tourism sector over the last 3 years. It hasn't been an easy ride, and yet it is a sector that contributes significantly to the country's economy. Talk us through some of those challenges.
Well, as you know, due to the pandemic that we had in the past 3 years, we weren't allowed to do business, particularly in the MICE industry. Gatherings of any sort were restricted or prohibited or limited at some points, which had a detrimental effect on tourism as a whole, because it prevented us from bringing both local or stimulating both local and international tourism. Our exhibitions and our events that we host on a regular basis bring people to a destination. We bring businesses together and we stimulate both local and international tourism. So not being able to operate at all has left us on the back end. And now we're trying to build back again. But now as we build back, we have other challenges that we have to deal with. So it hasn't been an easy road for the MICE industry at all.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the challenges of COVID-19 and not being able to operate, and now that the pandemic, the pits of it is really over, you're dealing with issues of blackouts and water issues. How are operators in the space managing those issues around blackouts? And so we do know, for example, the costs of diesel are really not sustainable for any business operating in any sector, and yet it's become almost the lifeline of many businesses that are operating in the country. So how are they navigating issues around the energy crisis and in some instances the water issues that exist?
Well, right now, our venues have had to be very, very clever and very creative in the way they manage these services. Thankfully, the larger venues, like your Cape Town Convention Centres, your Sandton Convention Centres, interestingly, are not affected by load shedding because of the districts in which they are. They are managed to overcome that. But there are many other venues in the country as well that require assistance. So they had to rely on this, on the use of generators, for example, multiple generators, to ensure that their events or exhibitions run smoothly at all times. Gallagher Convention Centre, for example, in Johannesburg is one of them that runs on multiple generators with a small downtime. But again, the impact of that on their bill at the end of the month because of the large amount of diesel being used is inhibiting. Thankfully, with the budget speech currently wanting to invest, allowing us to invest in renewables and allowing us the tax rebate will now allow venues both big and small to be able to invest in renewables that will help them to operate efficiently. And then allowing us to position the country as a destination of choice for both international and local events. So we are a very creative industry. We've managed to do it on our own, but the ripple effect in terms of the cost of that has been inhibiting. But thankfully, with the budget speech allowing us some sort of relief with regards to renewables and diesel, will allow us to make better investments. But there are also other things that are promising. You know, the investment in both our road infrastructure and our water infrastructure as well is really important to position us as a destination and allow us to stand out. Despite us being a third world country, our infrastructure allows us to be the destination of choice on the continent as well.
Yeah, and that's a very important point that you raised there in terms of the national budget speech and really the kind of reprieve that the minister announced in renewables and the rebates associated therewith. But what else can be done by government and related stakeholders to ensure the kind of support that this industry rather needs and these venues, and securing big events that keep them running at the end of the day?
At this point in time, I think a lot is being done behind the scenes. The industry, as the Association of African Exhibition Organizers, the South African Events Council, together with SA Tourism, are working very closely hand in hand to see how we can be supported as members of this industry to position ourselves as a destination for international events. So we have a great bid support program, and that will help us to, with financial support, for international organizers wanting to bring their events here, whether it be conferences or events or exhibitions. This is really important, but once we do that, we have to balance it with the infrastructure. When we bring people here, we bring in both local and international tourism to the country. And we need to be able to have the right services in place to move people from one destination to the other, to be able to have the sufficient accommodation, sufficient board and lodge, sufficient transport services where people feel comfortable and safe to move around within the country.
Yeah. With that, do you think that there is enough engagement between different stakeholders? You speak about safety. So I'm thinking, are there engagements with those in law enforcement or any other important sectors of government that contribute to the growth of the industry? You've mentioned infrastructure being a crucial component of the industry. But other departments like law enforcement, as I've just mentioned, are there enough engagements there to ensure that the industry is providing a safe experience for international travelers to enjoy events in South African venues?
Most definitely so. As part of the regulations in terms of hosting an exhibition or event in the country, you have to work with your local municipality and your law enforcement and safety officers to ensure that you have the right infrastructure set up and the right management to manage both traffic flow in and out of your venues, and ensure that everybody is safe. So those plans have to be done well before an event. We work hand in hand with the Joint Operational Committee in each province, in each municipality that we work in, to ensure that there's safety for both the visitors and the businesses participating in these exhibitions and events. So yes, that has been an ongoing thing for many years now, and will continue to be, to ensure that every exhibition and event held in this country is held under safe circumstances.
And then finally, very briefly, if you would, Projeni, the medium to long-term outlook for the industry, the conference centers that currently exist, and really the climate that we're currently living in. Are you optimistic about the opportunities that will potentially present themselves to the industry?
Absolutely. I think South Africa is an excellent destination. It really offers value for money for international travelers and international organizers wanting to host their events here. We have state-of-the-art venues throughout the country that we're really, really proud of, that have state-of-the-art services and infrastructure and facilities that we can boast to the world. Not only do we have great venues, we have great accommodation and great tourism spots that both international and local travelers want to be in. That, together with our cost, our value for money in terms of our rand-dollar exchange or rand-euro exchange, it is a really value for money when you come into South Africa, because in terms of accommodation, food, transportation, our costs are generally lower than many parts of the world. So it is a wonderful destination. We have great sites, we have great tourist places that both business and leisure tourists love to be at. So the package deal that we offer is amazing on this continent. I think it is the country of choice on the continent. As a third world country, we have first world infrastructure, and it makes it a suitable destination to bring visitors to for both meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions on the continent.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. That is Exposure Marketing Managing Director Projeni Pather joining us to speak about the industry of conferencing and hosting international events, and really just the ability for South Africa to attract international travelers to our shores, to expose them to our first-class infrastructure, as she has called it, for these events to be hosted at.